Hey everyone, I'm Kyle Racky, and I'm here today with Joel Burke. He is a partner at a local agency here in Halifax called Outshine. They are an amazing agency and group of consultants that help with analytics, with advertising, particularly specializing in digital advertising and analytics. So welcome to the show, Joel.
Oh, thank you for having me, Kyle. I'm very excited to be here.
Very happy to have you. Let's kick off the discussion. So you're kind of, we had Andrew Breen on a little while ago, a few months ago, and you may remember him, for those listening, talking about AdWords. Now, Joel, you're kind of like the Rain Man to Outshines.
Very
like,
kind way to put it.
If Andrew Breen is like the Tom Cruise, you're the Rain Man, but I mean that in the best possible way. You're genius. You're like you just know more about analytics than anyone I've ever met.
Well, thank you. Those are very kind words.
It's true words, and you're helping clients all over the world with their analytics and with their data, particularly B2B SaaS companies. And so I think for people listening to this today or people watching this, this is going to be a masterclass in analytics.
I think Kyle's like overselling.
No, it's true. So if you know
bit.
something about analytics, or if you're a digital marketing agency and you're trying to find ways to sell this to clients, listen up. So first of all, I know that's putting a lot of pressure on you, but I know you'll live up to it. What are the common challenges that you see when you're working with your clients around data and how they manage it?
There's so many challenges, but I think a better way to frame it might be so many opportunities. We've never had access to more data than we do today. Every single platform, from ad platform to your website, to your product, to your CRM, they generate more data, than ever. And I think the problem that everyone's having is they don't know what to do with it. They can't turn all the data into any actionable insight or even further operationalize it in real time. So some of the biggest challenges that we see today is actually the data lives in too many different places. So, you hear siloed data all the time and what are consultants and agencies and products doing to break down some of the silos. So we kind of view this problem in two parts, really. The first part being people are looking to create a system of record that can combine both sales and marketing data. So this would be maybe a BigQuery or Redshift SQL database where they can dump ad data, web analytics data, product data, CRM data together, and then after the fact, start stitching some of it together to understand, customer profiles or how to, make product decisions. The list can go on.
So to lay out, I guess, the case for this is we'll use us as an example, Proposify. We have a web-based product with a mobile app, and we use a product called Heap to basically calculate and store, what people are clicking on, pages they're viewing. We use Google Analytics to kind of look at higher up in the marketing funnel, how people are finding the marketing website and how they're getting to it, maybe some things they're doing within the product. Then we've got a product called ChartMogul, which takes our recurring billing and analyzes it to show us like MRR and lifetime value and that sort of thing. Then we've got a CRM and we've got Intercom and we've got all of these tools that are doing slightly different things, but they're all storing customer records. Different departments are looking at different tools. So a big problem we have, and I suspect anybody who runs a SaaS business or consults people who run SaaS businesses, they all have the same problem, which is exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah, and having a system of record in a data warehouse only solves for half of the equation. So then you have it all there. You can make beautiful reports. You can do FP&A analysis on your financials. You can tie financials to advertising efforts.
FP&A, wait.
Financial planning and analysis.
Gotcha. Okay.
So determining your customer lifetime value or your customer acquisition cost. And all of that is really powerful and definitely things everybody, strives to have within their organization. But what's happening right now that I think is even more exciting is the concept of operationalizing the data and trying to do more in real time. So instead of at the end of the day doing big data dumps into a centralized database, what inside of maybe the product data is extremely meaningful in real time, and how can you analyze things in real time and push just exactly what you need from one data source or one application to another. So I think a really good example using your own tech stack would be, how could you necessarily use your product data from maybe Heap to signal in real time something from like Intercom? And like, how does that connection get made? And how do you push data from one platform directly to another without having to go to that third-party data? Those are some of the challenges that a lot of our clients and customers are having, is they want to use it in a more real-time manner.
Yeah.
So then you need this entire new type of infrastructure that allows you to act much quicker, that can push very small amounts of data, but do it in real time.
I mean, my head's spinning, and I'm sure others are. So, like, what are the steps that you take? If you're working with a large, SaaS company, what's sort of ground one as far as just figuring out what to do?
I think my background plays a lot of the influence into where I start my discovery. So I kind of started off my analytics career doing like web. So I typically start with like a website because it's where I'm kind of the most comfortable, and I can start understanding a little bit about the marketing efforts that are going on, and a little bit about the user behavior and like what that marketing funnel looks like, and how some of that web data gets pushed into other areas, even if it's just a form fill for like a lead capture going to the CRM, something very basic. And then from there, I start, building out kind of my framework from that as a central point. But I think that has a lot to do with like my personal like history and experience. And then typically we go wherever the money is being spent. So if you're spending $1 million a month on paid acquisition, there's probably a lot of pressure within your organization to prove value on the advertising side. So the next logical step would be, well, where is the most money being spent, and where is the largest opportunity to drive improvement using data? On the web and advertising side, ads definitely are up there in the high priority. And then the next thing would be marketing automation. So you have, in the enterprise land, you have the marketing automation platforms like Eloqua and Marketo, and they come with huge licensing costs. They come with huge operational overhead, not trying to scare anybody away, but you typically need like a marketing ops team to run some of these platforms. So outside of your raw ad dollars, some of these marketing automation platforms can be your next largest kind of investment. And they're also, again, they're close to revenue because they're close to sales. So they might, marketing automation might not be driving net new leads, but they're nurturing leads. They're doing sales enablement. They, having good measurement within the CRM creates this opportunity to measure the impact of, revenue and marketing's contribution to sales and like pipeline creation, in those channels. So I would say the easier it is to measure the impact of your marketing efforts influence on revenue, the more, I guess, importance the measurement is going to be. So that's where we typically start, would be the advertising and the marketing automation. So yeah, I start looking at marketing data because that's my background and my experience. And then we look for other ways in which we can integrate that data. Nice. So for us, marketing spends a lot of time thinking about how they can best work, with sales. And one of the I think best entry points is how can they better share data together.
Yeah, because you want to almost go, if your sales team is following up on leads, what does that lead look like without doing a lot of manual surfing the web and like Salesforce? But like, what channels brought those leads? Did they come from Facebook ads? Where do they come from?
Exactly. Salesforce, and kind of created like a whole CRM, industry in many ways. But the BI platform that's built on top of a lot of CRMs is actually very impressive, and you can get a lot of sales operation data from like many CRMs.
What did you say about BI?
BI tools.
What's a BI tool?
Business intelligence tools. I mean, BI has been around forever. I think we're seeing a lot of changes in the industry as it becomes more web-based. And as data storage becomes a lot cheaper, it's making it a lot more accessible to smaller and smaller companies. And you no longer need a 10-person BI team to get value out of having a big database with like a BI data visualization platform. Most common being like Tableau, Looker.
Right. So so let's say you're you've got this problem, you've got data in multiple places, you want to share the data across multiple departments, make it easier, starting with marketing and sales. I guess what's sort of the next step that you would take? Is it hire a consultant or an agency like you guys to help you figure it all out? Is there a particular tool that you recommend using to sort of bridge the gap? Where do you kind of go from there?
Yeah, I actually think the best starting point is to talk to sales and talk to sales to try to figure out, okay, how can we use our marketing data and your sales data to work better together? And once you have buy-in across the organizations, it becomes much easier to get analytics projects funded. So if you think of being close to revenue, sales are the closest. They can be literally closing deals like on the phone. They're the last person the client talks to before revenue or cash like actually hits like a bank. Then the next is kind of marketing in terms of proximity to the sale. But analytics infrastructure has no direct impact on revenue. It's good analytics infrastructure empowers sales and marketing to make better decisions so that they can create more revenue and more opportunity for a company.
It's kind of like a guns don't kill people, people kill people idea, right? It's like the analytics don't make you money directly. They just empower people to make you money.
Exactly. So by positioning it within the organization as the data can be a bridge to span across the sales and marketing organizations, your project will much easier, it'll get funded.
Yeah.
And then once you have, executive sponsorship and buy-in and your project gets funded, then you can start having the talks. And I definitely would start thinking about first principles. So thinking about what are the business objectives we're trying to achieve with this data project? What data do we need to collect before you start looking for tools? SaaS analytics tools are extremely good at marketing, and it's very easy for them to convince you that you have a problem that you don't have, and there's only one solution to that problem, and it's to buy their software. But if you start with the most basic premises of what are the objectives we even have with these analytics projects, it becomes much easier and clearer to create very clear documentation and outcomes and figuring out exactly what you want to achieve. And then once you have that, you can start looking at vendors and solutions.
Yeah. Right. We had this challenge with our own company where I was looking at our CRM and saying, okay, we have all these places we want to push data into our CRM, thinking, I really needed to get the developers to basically build account IDs into our database so that we could link them all. And thinking that it was this huge project, I met with the developers and they were like, we already do this. Just use Zapier and connect them, and you can do it not everything you want to do, but you can do a lot of what you do. So it is about starting with your dream, this is what I want to achieve, and then figuring out a solution versus buying a solution and then trying to fit it into your problem.
Exactly. That's why companies like Zapier are so incredibly popular. Is they're not a one size fits all solution. They're just a tool that lets you do a lot of stuff without having to develop a lot of your own internal infrastructure.
Yeah. Another example too is that I was looking heavily at Clearbit, right? Which I know you've got some experience with. And they do a lot of really cool things, but for what I wanted, which was just basically pull in the industry, the company size, and a few other kind of fields for lead qualification, it wasn't until I sat down with my developer and looked through what Zapier offered, and he showed me their apps. One of them is a scraper, like a lead scraper, and simply just within 2 minutes of setting up that Zap, it was pushing that data.
So do you know
CRM.
What it was using for its data source?
I don't remember offhand, but they did mention it in there. So it was a lot of what we talked about this sort of off camera was that there's your this is what I want. This would be beautiful. This would be a dream. But then there's just how do you take that first step and just get something that's a little better than nothing?
Yeah, and I think that's another great point is you don't have to go quickly. A lot of the infrastructure should be made on a time investment of looking out 2 to 3 years. even if you started collecting new data today that you wanted to operationalize, it's going to take time to just collect it all before you can actually start using it in any meaningful way. So that's why I think like once you've kind of agreed with, maybe your sales and marketing alignment piece, you got buy-in, you get funding to do more with data, starting the next phase is going to be really looking at like implementation. So like what first party data do you want to collect? And that could be data on your website or data from your product or data from your CRM. But I think the next really big thing that a lot of people miss out on is third party data. So you mentioned Clearbit. There's a lot of really good third party data providers that can provide industry company size that you can layer on top of your first party data to do things like amazing lead scoring. So the next thing that we see that's really valuable is sales resources can be incredibly scarce. And lead scoring is an amazing way to prioritize your sales resources by ensuring that your sales team's only following up on the most qualified leads and optimizing like their time.
Yeah.
So there's a company that's in the Salesforce incubator called MadKudu that does some really cool like ML, AI, machine learning style stuff.
MadKudu?
Yeah, MadKudu on lead scoring, AI-driven lead scoring. So they'll
really
connect
cool.
directly to your your CRM, and using all your like enriched data, product data, they can ingest a very wide variety of the data, and then just give you back the maybe the person score and the account score. We really recommend companies kind of break that out into two different buckets. So you think of your market opportunity at like very big enterprise scale versus an SMB or mid-market, and then person score, which would be, well, how senior are they? Are they an executive? Are they an external consultant? So by combining the company and the person, it really helps filter out some of those high value leads that need to be followed up on.
Okay, so if you're listening to this, you may be overwhelmed depending on your knowledge of this stuff. But I think one thing that would really help tie it together is, Joel, you have a kind of a case study of how this all came together for one client.
Yeah, so I can't take credit for coming up with this approach. I actually think the person who created this particular use case is Guillaume from, I think he recently took a job as VP of Growth at Drift.
Oh, wow.
I think they do like real-time like messaging platform for SaaS companies. Really cool product. So he's kind of like, Guillaume is kind of this like mad genius. And I love how he was able to pull all this data and infrastructure together in near real time to create this kind of use case that bridges sales and marketing. So we discussed this kind of offline, and we wanted to share it with the wider audience of a website visit that's completely anonymous, and how you can use companies like Clearbit to reveal that anonymous visit to see what company is currently visiting your website. And I wanted to touch on kind of like ABM because it's a lot of people are talking about it these days, especially in the B2B space, where you have maybe 100, 200 target accounts. So by combining IP lookup and company names, you can see if companies from your target account list have visited your website. And this has been really powerful because you can see what marketing efforts are driving engagement to your target accounts. But then you might want to operationalize this data in like a meaningful way. So you can actually take this data and push it into another app or a database, and then you can enrich it even further. So one of the things we really like is using target account company name and then trying to find the individuals inside of that company that our team would want to reach out to. So if you're an agency trying to sell into organizations, you might be wanting to look for maybe director and above inside of the marketing side of the organization. So maybe some directors, some VPs, and maybe CMOs. Well, what you can do with third-party enrichment is you can turn that company name into maybe 5 contacts with email addresses, social media handles, and then push that data to your CRM. And then inside the CRM, you can have automated task queues for maybe an outbound BDR to follow up. So now your BDRs aren't just emailing, people on the list randomly, but your BDRs are prioritizing leads based on web data that's in near real time. Yeah. And if you get lucky and you happen to respond in near real time to of the actual visitor from that company. I know this is more likely if the company is much smaller. If you have big enterprise companies with tens of thousands of employees and you're reaching out to maybe 5 people within the organization, the odds are pretty low.
Yeah.
But at small companies, there's an opportunity to reach out with a cold email to someone that recently visited your website. And we've seen this have a profound impact on the success rates of BDR lead generation.
And of course it does, right? Because people buy products when they're in the buying mode,
Gotta
right?
strike while the iron's hot.
Yeah, when they're thinking about the problem and they're actively looking for a solution, that's the best time to reach out to them. If you send somebody a cold email for your video services and that's not on their mind, what kind of success are you going to have? But when somebody's like, shit, I really need a video.
Yeah,
of course.
And where this all stems from, and maybe I should have started here, is if you're lucky and you have amazing conversion rates with incredible offers and you're creating value for your end users, you will have a conversion rate of 5 to 10%. And that's like the best case scenario, I think, for most lead offers. Your 90% of the visits that come visit your website are completely anonymous and they just leave without, any thought. And techniques like this allow you to take advantage of those anonymous website visits and try to incorporate them a little bit further downstream inside your sales organization, and not just leaving it up to just a very broad display remarketing,
right?
And
Facebook.
hope that they hope that they come back.
Yeah,
it gives you a more proactive way to combine again with that outbound approach, and it is a real tool that joins sales and marketing across the org because you have this website behavior joined with sales outreach.
Love it. So you and Andrew and the team at Outshine, you guys are growing, and you're also sharing a lot of this insight on your own blog. Is there anywhere else that you want people to kind of check you out, connect with you on social media, anything like that?
Yeah, outshineCA is our official Twitter handle, and you can reach me at Burke Joel on Twitter. I'm not super active, but I do share the odd analytics infrastructure piece of advice if that's something that's interests you.
And that's outshine.com. Check them out. Cool agency. Joel, thanks for coming in and sharing your wisdom with us.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Kyle. It's a pleasure.
All right, so thank you guys. Be sure to subscribe so you get more content like this. I'll see you next week.
Cheers.